We're here today to announce Bob Melvin as the manager of the San Diego Padres. A very exciting day for our organization and for Padre fans. We started this process a month ago with a very clear list of attributes and characteristics we were looking for in our next manager. It was apparent early in the search process that this was an attractive situation, mainly due to a talented core of players at the big league level, a deep system, and especially the energy, the passion, and the support that our fans have shown for this team and this group, especially in the last few seasons. With that in mind, I was talking with our baseball ops group, encouraged them to cast a wide net of possible candidates and to be open-minded in the process. And enabled us to talk to some of the best minds and top leaders in the game over the last month. But Bob was at the top of the list for us. A lot of credit goes to the Oakland A's, John Fisher, Billy Beane, David Forst. When I reached out to Billy and broached the topic, the first thing he told me was basically no chance. Go to hell. But no, he was actually. I think from my guess is due to loyalty, their friendship, and the great things they've done in 11 years together there. He was open-minded, and in a very competitive industry, his main question and his main thought to me was, I'm going to do what's best for Bob, which you don't hear a lot in this industry. And it sounds like after their conversation, it came back that Bob was curious and open-minded about our possibility. That led to us sitting down 4 or 5 times over the course of a week plus. Bob got a chance to meet other members of our baseball operations team and group, and it became very obvious in those sit-downs why Bob was the top candidate for us in this process. His resume speaks for itself. His experiences, 10 years as a major league catcher, 2001 winning a World Series ring as a bench coach with the Arizona Diamondbacks, almost nearly 2 decades as a major league skipper, 3-time manager of the year, 7 times in the playoffs. His baseball acumen, attention to detail, and incredibly intelligent on the field, able to blend information and have it lead to player performance. His leadership style stands out, holds players accountable. He has honest and tough conversations and looks forward to that with players, while still motivating players to go out and play for him and for the organization. It's really remarkable conversations we had with former players, the respect and connection they felt to Bob as a manager, guys that were the top part of the roster to other players that filled out the roster, former coaches that coached with him, former staff members. They just kept coming back to the day-to-day dealings with him as a leader, speaking to his style and the attributes that we were looking for. Philosophically, from a baseball operations group, very much on the same page with our team about what wins, what works, and what plays at the major league level. And the number one thing that stood out to me personally was Bob's burning desire to win a championship as a major league manager, which is probably about the only thing he hasn't done yet in this game as a major league skipper, which fits perfectly in line with the vision of Peter Seidler, Eric Grubner, myself, and our entire Padres organization. So for all of those reasons, we're extremely excited to announce Bob Melvin as the manager of the San Diego Padres. Thank you. So I'm taking a coat off, right?
Yeah. I'm probably as surprised to be here as you all are. Going through the process, we kept it pretty under the radar, which it probably needed to be. Being that I'd been in Oakland as long as I had, I really appreciate, John Fisher and Billy and David allowing me to go interview here. I wasn't really sure what that would entail afterwards, but, once I got here and met AJ in his gym shorts and his T-shirt and 4 basketballs sitting behind him, and that kind of was the first hook. But having some conversations with him, his passion for baseball is immense. We went out and had a couple of dinners, and you would think dinners are typically a couple hours. They're flicking the lights to get his attention at 11:30 because we're having these long baseball conversations. And then when I got here and was able to talk to, Mr. Seidler, man, what an impressive what an impressive man, and you know, what he's gone through in his life, and you know, what he brings to this team, his passion for the people of San Diego stood out right away. And then meeting everybody else and listening to the story here. You know, Eric I met was actually Ted Lasso at the time, and I still expect him to be Ted Lasso. That was his Halloween costume, and that made quite the impression on me too. But it just, and after talking to everybody and seeing, you know, what the stories here, and that's before you even talk about the players that they have here and the ballpark they have here. I remember when we came here when I was with the A's last season, we came here on a Tuesday night, there were 40,000 people here, and it was electric. You would have thought it was the playoffs, and it resonated with everybody in our dugout. We're all looking around at each other going, wow. And that's before, like I said, the ballpark is fantastic. I mean, it is a true destination. Every team that comes here looks at the schedule. They say, when do we go to San Diego? And now with the fan base and the enthusiasm here and the roster. I mean, the roster is the real hook. I mean, these some of the great players in the game that I know are hungry to bring a championship to San Diego. So listening to this for a couple days was, you know, it was really an easy decision to make, and I'd been in a place for 10 plus years. So, you know, it kind of all came together quickly. I had a great feeling about it from the very beginning, culminating in a day like this. I couldn't be happier. You know, Kelly and Lexi, my wife and daughter, have always been do what you need to do, and to be able to come here and like AJ said, it's all about winning at this point. When you have a roster like that and you have all the people that give you the resources and the backing to do it, I don't know that there's a better destination in baseball to be able to come, so I'm a lucky man.
Given your long and successful tenure in Oakland, why was now the right time? Why was this the right situation to change? And also, given that you've managed against this ball club, what's the most exciting part now about managing with this group of players in this front office?
Well, the last part's the roster. I mean, you have some of the best players in the game, and maybe the most exciting young player in the game, you know, in Tatis. Machado, what a stud. He's a potential MVP every year. The rotation of the guys in the rotation, you know, throughout the bullpen, the entire roster. And, you know, it's just, you know, sometimes it just becomes time. And, you know, I was lucky enough to manage a team for 10 plus seasons. I was the longest tenured guy. I grew up in the Bay Area. It was a hometown team of mine. I was absolutely as fortunate as you could be to manage that team. But there comes a time where you know it doesn't go forever. And I think, you know, Billy and David were nice enough to realize that too, and understanding the opportunity that I had here. So it was a surprise. I didn't expect it, but you know, once I was given the opportunity to listen to people here, it became clear pretty quickly that this was the place for me.
How about welcome to San Diego? Can you take us through kind of how this all came about from your perspective, and kind of maybe when you started to like really consider this as a possibility, and maybe just how those deliberations went for you?
Yeah, really, it was the first conversation I had with AJ, and is you know, he knows this team, you know, inside out. It appears to me that's about all he does is baseball and talk baseball and know baseball, and he's, you know, he's got a scouting background. He's, you know, and was able to walk me through what this was all about here. So, you know, it was just a call from Billy telling me that I had an opportunity. Did I want to, you know, go through with it and listen to AJ? I live in Arizona. AJ happened to be in Peoria at the time. I went to the complex to talk to him. So it was a bit of a surprise as I was driving there. It was almost surreal in the fact that I was actually going to be talking to another team. I did a little research on the team, and I knew the team from being here before. But, you know, I'm driving going, well, what is this really going to be about? And like I said, next thing I knew, we had a great conversation. It was another conversation the next morning in Peoria, and then a call to come to San Diego for a couple days, and got to talk to everybody in the organization. And once I was here in San Diego, and you know how I feel about this ballpark and the experiences I had earlier that year, I had a great feeling that I wanted to do this. I wasn't sure how it was going to play out. But I knew that I was here, that there was probably a chance. And as the days, you know, then there was a 2-day process here, and couple more dinners and met Mr. Seidler, and then it all came together pretty quickly.
Given what you've learned about the team in your investigation, what do you know about why they underachieved, and how are you going to contribute to making them a champion?
Yeah, you would say underachieve. Look, they have a really good team, and every year there are several teams that have a chance to, be world champions. There's even more that have a chance to go to the postseason now with two wild card teams. If you look at 2/3 of the season, it certainly didn't overachieve. It just had a bad third of the season at the wrong time, and they're in a division that's immense. It's a division. So I don't necessarily think they underachieved. I think they had a bad period at the end of the season that ended up ruling the day and not being able to get to the postseason. They did get to the postseason the year before. My initial conversations with guys here are that the sky's the limit for this team. They all are really thirsty to not only get back to the postseason, but win a world championship, because that's what it's all about. So we were all on the same page there, and looking up and down the roster, and you look at other rosters in the leagues. You look at Atlanta right now, who's got a chance to win a World Series. I mean, I don't personally think there are rosters that are better. They're probably equivalent, but this team's the next big thing for this team and this town and this organization is getting to the postseason, going deep in it, and wanting and expecting to win a World Series.
Bob, Bryce Miller from the San Diego Union Tribune. What was the number one thing on your list you needed to hear for this to happen?
Just how passionate they were to win. I mean, that's where I am in my career too. This could be my last stop, and to have this type of team, knowing that that it would culminate my career as well, even though it's not about me. Wherever I've been, it's not about me. It's about the team, about the process. Everybody has a job to do. Everybody comes together and has the same goals. But it just felt like, this team is right on the verge of doing that, and it kind of resonates around here, and I felt it very, very quickly.
Hey, Bob, Dennis Lund with The Athletic. You mentioned being the longest tenured manager with one team until right now. How has that experience kind of shaped you as your leadership style, and how do you think you've evolved with the game as it's kind of changed over the last 10 years?
Yeah, I think, look, I was in Seattle, I was in Arizona. The game has changed a lot, and it's different now, especially when I first started, and Pat Gillick hired me in Seattle in 2003. It is a completely different game right now. Just like in any walk of life, change seems to be accelerating, and so is the game of baseball into a direction that, is gotten into a hefty balance between analytics and make up traditional type baseball things. I learned a lot about the analytics in Oakland. It was a little painful at times early on, based on the fact that I grew up looking at the game a little bit differently, but I think it's made me better. It's opened my eyes that, any information that you can get, whether it's information that that comes from your experiences and or information that you get from data, if you can marry that, I think that's the best balance. And I think that's what I learned more so in Oakland, was there's a different way to look at the game. And, Billy was a guy that was kind of at the forefront of the analytics and data and information. And, I was lucky enough to be around them for quite a while to learn that and know that there's a balance.
One for each of you. AJ, what do you think it's going to be like to work with a veteran manager, a guy who's been around for a long, long time? And what made you comfortable, Bob, working with AJ?
Yeah, I think from my chair, yeah, looking forward to it a lot. Somebody that's obviously tremendous experiences and things that we're all going to lean on and grow with. And again, I think just even in the last few weeks, it feels like the conversations are easy, they're fun, and again, when there's a lot of common ground in terms of how you think about the game, what we think about, what we're trying to do from a motivation standpoint and a winning standpoint. Again, I think really looking forward to those conversations continuing here as we get going in the next few weeks and months.
You would think, the more of the younger GMs, presidents GMs are more analytic based, And I kind of had that assumption coming here, and I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think it's a marriage of both. And with AJ's scouting background and the way he talked about players and knowing them inside and getting to know these guys and talking about some of the traditional things that I came up with and the blend of the analytics, it just seemed to me like a perfect balance here. So it was great to hear that how deep he digs on players and not necessarily just trend lines and where guys are in their career and expectations and predicting things, which a lot of the analytics do. There's also a makeup component that he understood beautifully, and that is my job too, being in the dugout, to know these guys and what motivates them, and just ended up being exactly what I wanted to hear.
This is for AJ. AJ, when did you realize that Bob might be available and was interested in this job, and what was your reaction?
That's a good question. I like to hear that one.
Yeah, I think again, when we started right when the season was over, and you kind of put your wish list and your dream list together. I mean, he was a name that just internally in the office that we were throwing around. Again, I think for us, just being open-minded and looking at different situations around the league. And I think what we tried to do in the process was sit and talk to some other candidates. Obviously, Bob's situation being under contract, I think for us, it wasn't going to be where he was going to come in and be one of 10 candidates. I think what we tried to do was first couple weeks in the process, go out and find other candidates that were available at that time that we could connect with the idea that, hey, at the right point in time, reach out to Billy and Oakland and just see, if we got to a point where compare Bob to the other candidates that we had looked at, because again, you have to be respectful of their franchise, their organization, what they're trying to do on that front. So that's the way we try to attack it over the last few weeks.
Managed some really good young players in Oakland who turned into all-stars and MVP candidates. Can you encapsulate how that will affect your approach with Fernando Tatis Jr. early in his career?
Yeah, I mean, it started back in Oakland early on. Yoenis Cespedes, I was really close with him. Josh Donaldson, who was really a AAA catcher at the time when we brought him to the big leagues. Now the Olsons and the Chapmans and those guys. So I do have a history with young players, and I love young players. I mean, they're the backbone of your team, really. I mean, it's a blend, it's a balance of guys. There are veterans here, there are young players here, but it's the young players that kind of push the veterans these days. It used to be the other way around, where it was all about the veterans and the young players come in and they bide their time and they earn their stripes. I've found that leadership can come from any dynamic, any player, and I think in Oakland we allowed the younger players, if they had the intangibles to be leaders, to lead right away. Not, look, you got to wait 3 years to do this. Matt Chapman, the minute he got to Oakland, he was a leader, and we embraced that. So, the younger players these days, and I can't think of a better younger player than Fernando Tatis right now, who not only is going to be a star, you can't take your eyes off him on the field, and looks to be a really confident guy that the team looks to get inspiration from. So that's an easy one for me, is knowing that, in dealing with good young players and then getting to learn him and understand what moves him, and to do the best I can to bring out the best in him.
Hi, Bob. Marty Caswell from Extra 1360. Your pitching coach is already in place. Do you expect to have the full authority and final word on the rest of your coaching staff? And do you see any coaches from Oakland coming over?
I don't know yet. We're going to talk about here in the coming days. And then, no, I'm not going to have it. That comes from everybody. I mean, you want input from everybody. You also want people in the Padre organization, the good people in development, to have a chance to get to the big leagues too. And something, in Oakland, I don't think every coaching change I think we've had there in the last 5 or 6 years have been internal. Now, with a new manager from another organization, there's going to be a blend of that. But I want to hear about what we have here in the organization. I'll probably have a few names to throw out there too, but we want to get it right as a complete staff. It's not just going to be me saying, this is who I want.
And AJ, with someone with Bob's caliber, how were you able to acquire him without giving up any compensation to the A's?
Yeah, I think that really goes to Oakland, just looking for what's best for Bob, and I think the appreciation for what he did there in a decade. So I think each group, each organization is probably a little bit different. I think it just speaks to, again, like, John Fisher, Billy Bean, David Forrest, those guys looking for what's best for their group, and really honestly looking at what was best for Bob at that time.
Padres, in a sense, kind of embody the changing personality of baseball. As a manager that's been around the game for a long time, when you see kind of the energy, the enthusiasm they play with, and the way they've kind of pushed back on some of the old norms, what's your thought and outlook on that?
Yeah, I don't know that there really are old norms anymore. That line has really kind of been wiped out now, and I think it's good for the game too. The game probably needed some enthusiasm. We had Mark Hanna in Oakland with bat flipping season, and for veteran guys, you have to acclimate to that. But that's been an easy part for me, and I think if you want to have a younger fan base, I think it resonates with them, the enthusiasm and the individualism, yet in a team atmosphere, I think is really good for the game, and it resonates here probably as well as anywhere else.